If the capacity of the state is exceeded, the federal government comes in through NEMA. Instead of the bottoms-up approach, it has turned the other way. Mr. Chairman, as we speak today, I have written to all the 36 state governors, and I have copies to show you 4 times. When NIMET released seasonal climate prediction and NISA released their flood outlook, we warned them in time. After we organized stakeholders meeting to analyze those reports and identify vulnerable areas with risk mapping, and sent it out to all the state governors early. So we wrote to them 4 times, and part of what is in the letter is they should have local emergency management committee. Mr. Chairman, it's sad to note that only 4 states have local emergency management committee. Only 4 states. Some states, as we speak, same as don't exist. They don't have state emergency management agency. How do we manage disaster from bottom up when you don't have, some states don't even have SEMA? Some SEMAs are just like a briefcase. They're just word of mouth, but there is no SEMA. Because everything that comes up in any state, the first responder they call, everybody calls up to NEMA. We are overstretched. All these people, I'm seeing them for the first time maybe in over a week, because they are all deployed to different states.
This NEMA should not be under any ministry. It should be directly under the presidency. But it's an emergency situation. You can see NEMA all over the world. Yeah. See what is happening in Pakistan. Because their own flooding disaster is more than 1,000% of what we're having here. But what we're having is because of lack of enough statistics to know the real figure of those people that have died, that have been flooded away by this high tide water. Automatically, maybe the National Assembly must have to look for something to do in form of a legislation to bring you directly under the presidency. Because this is an emergency situation that you can spend any amount from our budget. Now, those people have been displaced now. How do you resettle them?
Road to 2023 on Symphony. I'm Victor Irele, welcoming you to the program. In today's edition of the program, we'll take on another presidential candidate and look at his take on some national issues, and of course, how he intends to turn the tide in Nigeria, given the opportunity to lead this country in 2023. That will be our focus. And of course, the African Action Congress presidential candidate, Omoyele Sowore, is our guest today on the program. The usuals are also on the program. The INEC update, situation in Abia State, talking about the governor banning campaigns in schools, gradually spreading. We'll look at all of that. And then we come to you out there having an opportunity of being part of the show as always. But tonight, like I said earlier, I'm not alone on the program. It's my pleasure to have his maiden outing on this platform, the presidential candidate of African Action Congress, who in 2018 formed this political party on which platform he ran for the 2019 presidential election and came fifth in that election. Of course, there are some big weeks that he did better than. Once again, in March this year, he indicated interest to run once again for the presidency of the country. And on June 9th, he won the presidential ticket of his party unopposed. I'm talking of no other than Omoyele Sowore. Good to have you on the platform.
Thank you for bringing me. Good evening.
Evening. Of course, do remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Symphony. And don't forget to hit the notification bell. And just to acknowledge that we've been joined live from Gambia. James is joining us from Gambia. James, good to have you.
You've done a very wonderful job. You've done what Napoleon could not do for France. Thank you for bringing him.
Thank you very much, James. Thank you. NS is also joining us from the US. NS, good to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to see Sowore. I have so many questions.
Don't worry. It's always a pleasure having you, NS, the most prominent female voice that joins us on the program. We appreciate you. And of course, Obi Oji is also joining us live from the US. Obi, good to have you.
Yeah, good evening. I got you guys today on time. Thank you for bringing it. 3 down, 15 to go.
Thank you very much, Obi. We appreciate you for joining us as always. Of course, we are going to tweak our run order as usual. You know our usual run order, but we are going to tweak it so that we want it to be as explosive as possible and as engaging as possible. So, you know how we do it, but for today, we will turn it around and goes to the main focus. Let's go on a short break with that insert from the town hall meeting that he was a part of, and then we hit the ground running.
I don't think something.
We're not able to get something. Let me. Should we come to the people who are on here? Please pass the microphone to Mr. Sowore. And the question to you will be: you're a presidential candidate of the AAC, and the amount of money that we hear makes the head spin when you hear what some political party candidates are spending. What kind of money will the political party that is not on the same level with them be able to spend? And what should be a limit in terms of capping it? And where will that money come from?
Well, I think I should briefly say that election day in Nigeria has become a day for verification of poverty. That's why we call the permanent voters card the poverty verification card in Nigeria. And the reason is simple. It is not just about cash and ballots. There are a lot of factors involved in making Nigeria election the way it is. Nobody is talking about security agencies. Mike did mention about election managers. The mainstream politicians have perfected how to take care of every stage from primaries to the final election. So the real currency is manipulation, like, hard manipulation of people's minds. In fact, most of the people that are expecting cash don't get it. So they create an expectation fantasy that your cash is on your way and those who got cash, it never lasts them for a week anyways after the election day. But in terms of money, the reason why those of us who are not mainstream, the way we manage our affairs is to sell ideas, because that should ordinarily be the currency of the democratic process in Nigeria. So people have ideas to project them, defend them, and spread them. So we try very hard to spread ideas, and it's very difficult. In terms of how much money is needed, my experience in 2019 is that if you have ideas, great ideas, you don't need too much money. People actually do listen to ideas. But the problem is that on the day of voting, can you resist? Can you take ideas to the polling unit and vote based on the ideas you were told, or the money, cash, or the expectation of it, or the violence? Can you resist? And that's why a lot of people don't vote. What should be the cap? You can't cap election cash as long as you have those who deal in cash as the managers of the elections themselves. And this is what the major political parties do. They don't have a cap. We saw in the home of one of the candidates in the last election, not the candidate, but the political leader, a bullion van. And nothing was done about it. You can imagine how much is inside a bullion van in one day. And I heard there were 3 of them. So how do you deal with those kind of characters who have the capacity to actually drive cash around or pretend that there's money in there? I actually think it's a psychological thing. Like if you see a bullion van, you expect that the person has money and you go and vote for him, I expect the money will get to you. So what should the cap be? I think it's a function of election finance laws, and we need those badly in Nigeria that can be enforced, because majorly we have laws that are not enforced or are enforced with poor people and not enforced with the powerful, rich people in the political scene.
All right, welcome back. That was one of the town hall meetings that he attended. But lately, we've seen situations where some organizers, whether town hall meetings or debates, have tended to concentrate on some political parties while looking away from others and probably saying that others are too small to be invited. How do you feel with developments like this?
Thank you for bringing me once again to your show. I have experienced it before. In 2018, 2019 campaign cycle, I was excluded also by the people who were managing the debates, the Nigeria election debate group. And we actually took them to court to force upon them our rights to participate in this debate as long as we are candidates participating in the election. But unfortunately, the judge did not deliver a judgment on our request, and we had no option than to engage in some protests, but it didn't work. In fact, at that time, the CEO of Channels TV, was the chairman of the election debate group. I don't know if he's still there now. We took the fight to his office in Lagos, in studios, and protested. So what they're doing now is not new. They want to. This is part of the conspiracy we are talking about within the Nigerian political system, where they railroad Nigerian people in direction of people without ideas and steer them away from people with ideas. What you do in advanced democracies, or any democracy for that matter, is to provide opportunities for everybody to engage with the public. And then over time, based on the response of the public, will be polling sometimes, or most of the time, you can reduce the number. They do that in primaries in the US. You have up to 10 candidates on the stage and engage for 2 or 3 hours. And some, after their first performances, will not even come back when they look at the feedback. So at that point, you can be said to be fair. In this case, there are 18 political parties, because the excuse in 2019 was that there's 70 something political candidates and they don't have a stage to fit all of them in. What they then did was to poll the public, see who they want to listen to. And when they carried out the polling, that's 2018, 2019, a lot of people preferred myself. In the polling they did, I kept coming up 3, 4 places, and they were saying they wanted 4. But what they did in that regard was to go for people who did not win in the polls, because they targeted me. People like Obieze Kwesile, Fela were behind me. They did it last Sunday again with their Rice TV, CDD uh, debate or town hall series they called. In their own Twitter advertised poll, they said I was number 5, which I doubt very much that on Twitter, someone like Kwakwanso will defeat me on Twitter in a poll. It's impossible. I have 816 organic followers, or 830 something organic followers. I'm not sure exactly the numbers, but they're up more than 800,000. Kwakwanso is like 262. He probably bought half of them, because I don't see him as someone who is. So, but so when Tinubu bailed out on them, they went for Kola Abiola, who garnered 6.5% of the votes on the polling that they did on Twitter. I had 20 point something percent. So it shows you directly why they had started the rigging of the election in advance. They're afraid of ideas. And I know that these things were packaged so that not only are they afraid of the kind of things I would say that will steer the public in my direction and my ideas, but they're also afraid that I will challenge the so-called front runners. Because I've met some of them at debates, or I mean at events, and completely took them to task on their records. They couldn't defend it. So these are the conspiracies that has become dominant now. And we just heard as of today that the NEDG is going to start its own series campaign next few days.
Yeah,
They also
15th.
have not invited me, and we two candidates have already indicated that they may not be participating in debates anymore. Tinubu, I knew he won't anyway because he had nothing to say or offer. And Atiku seems to also be steering away from debates. Peter Obi has also now threatened not to participate in debates if Tinubu and Atiku don't show up. So the truth is that these are well hatched conspiracies against people like me or fresh ideas. The four candidates they project are former governors, former vice presidents who have been in position of authority and power and failed spectacularly in their callings and in their positions. I want to challenge them. That's what they call it debate, right? You debate ideas, you debate records, and then you speak to the people. Uh, and then it's up to the public to choose who they want to vote for.
Left to you,
Yes.
would you want debates ahead of elections to be made mandatory? Because we've had people argue
It
that
should be. It should be. I believe that any serious country, especially countries like ours, should not allow anybody to pull out of those important events. The democracies or elections are not by themselves a voting exercise alone. It's a series of activities that leads to that day that makes it unique. The moment you frustrate those opportunities and you kill all the parameters that helps the public to decide who they want to vote for, then you are not conducting elections, you are conducting selections.
okay, let's come back a little bit home. Recently, the federal government, Asuu, had issues after 8 months of strike. Asuu called off their strike, and then Asuu resumed work, only for them to see the federal government pay them half salary, and they've just been crying blue mother. For you, is this the right way to go in trying to resolve the issue in the education sector, knowing exactly that we've lost 8 months of an academic section, almost a year, and where we are almost back to the trenches again?
So I want you to be clear about two things. One is that ASU never actually went out of a strike. The strike continued. They were just obeying technically a court order that says go back to work. So there's a difference between going back to work and going back to class, right? And ASU lawyers know how to help them interpret this kind of laws. The second aspect of it that we must understand, I think, and this has been a prominent way of handling elections too. I think the government don't want students to come back to classes because of the elections. One, if students are on campuses, they are more likely to organize. Campus environment provides a prominent space and a legitimate space for them to debate, discuss, and organize for candidates. The second aspect of so that then means that by the time all this is resolved, elections are practically over. So I think it is political to keep ASU out of the classroom. Um, the second aspect of it is the hatred for education by this regime. It's not the first regime. Um, I was a student union leader in the University of Lagos, and in the 90s, it was the same way. There's always this poking of uh, the poking of the bear. by the government, always ensuring that they go out there to provoke Asuu to go on strike, so that we do not have an academic calendar system that works, for young people. And what do I mean? They go out of they've improved the strategy to the point that at a point it was what they use as a segue into privatizing, buying licenses to own universities. Atiku got a university license during ASU strike. Obasanjo got his Bell University license, as a result of the crisis in the education sector. And I have said this, and this is more deeply philosophical, and I hope people believe it, that if, this kind of political class we have prefer uneducated and ignorant people than those who are. Because if Nigeria were to have the kind of standard education you have in other places, some of the people governing us would not be able to do so, because educated people, well educated people. So there's a difference between being educated and being literate. Well educated people would not have accepted some of the kind of leaders we have. They don't have to raise a finger, but the kind of education they provide is, that fast food type of education. They just rush you through the system. You get out, you're looking for what to eat of a job. And at the end of it, you become very vulnerable to the kind of mediocre governance that is run in Nigeria. That's the philosophical aspect of it that people should not ignore. Because not only are they doing this to higher institutions, they're also doing it to primary schools and secondary schools. They, even though they might have some academic calendar, students who go to the schools have no teachers. A lot of them don't have teachers. There are over 20 million out of school kids. You have to be the enemy of your country in an oil producing country to hate education so much that 20 million students are out of school. But I did my research, and there are only 5.2 million kids in secondary schools in Nigeria.
So you mean that the number is more than what we are being
The
projected?
number of kids that are in school is just about 25% of the number of kids that are out of school. So let's assume that secondary school students are 5.2. Or that's from GSS 1 to SS 3. Only 5.2 of them are in school. All the students in our university, there are only 1.7 million. So university is a secondary school and not up to 10 million people in those very crucial educational institutions. They're not up to it. Sometimes I use that. I also use that, not sometimes, I use that to question even INEC figures that over 40% of voters are students. Because you have 93 million voters. The number of students in our higher institutions at secondary school are only about 7 million. If you are going to be 18, you have to be in SS1 to 3. Mostly students in SS3 are not even up to 18 years. So where do you get the figures from? Well, maybe you can argue that people who registered and claim they are students are these numbers. But I think it's all manipulative. If you look at the real figures and the figures that they put out there for statistical reasons. So I have not done my research for primary schools. So if you have only 10 million people in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, and you have 20 million kids out of school, you are in trouble for the future. There's no question about it. You are just setting yourself for a future of crisis, of crime, of lack of order and peace. You can't escape it, except something is done now urgently. And that's why I had proposed, and I still do propose in my manifesto for free education, that we have to rapidly bring these kids back to the classrooms. And the classrooms can be physical or digital, physical or virtual. And I've proposed this many times that we can start sending our children to school without physical classrooms through digital or virtual opportunities that are now there provided by technology.
But given given the cost of data and our internet penetration, do you think that
We,
would
we
be
actually
an
have
option?
decent internet penetration. Over, I think over 100 million Nigerians have access to internet now, almost, as far as I'm aware of.
What of our rural communities?
Well, rural communities are not doing badly. The way to do this is to use the companies, what's it, cable companies, to help out. There's the rural communities you are talking about. It's virtually no rural place I went to in 2019 that didn't have Star Times, Go TV or DSTV. We can turn one of those channels to educational classrooms, or even more than one of them. If, regardless of where you are in Nigeria today, I won't say the entire country, there is no way you need to watch a live match from the UK, from England, the English team, that you can't. So, and those are internet pipelines too. Most people don't know that's internet. It just happened to be a different kind of internet. So, if I want to do a live show, or I want to do a live classroom, I can use YouTube. You understand? And project it on a big wall and teach students. It's so interesting. I know most of them don't know because they don't have digital. They're not digital thinkers, and they don't belong to the digital generation. It's so interesting that we can do it in a way that we can even talk to countries around the world to allow our kids to be taught on the curriculum of their own kids. So a child in Nigeria can go to an English classroom every day, even though they're tying like wrapper. you know, these are technological ways of training. And if you doubt this, I was talking about this by the way, even in 2019, and people were making fun of. If you doubt this, look at what COVID-19 did to the world. My kids went to class for almost 2 years without leaving the house. They were bored to death, no doubt. And I have a friend in Abuja who said his kids were also attending classes in the UK over the internet. So it was a big deal. And I'm sure there are a lot of countries around the world who would like to. In fact, it expands educational opportunities better than what we have now. Considering that all day long you can go to a French classroom, you can go to a German classroom, and kids have capacity to learn a lot more than adults. If I learn a new language now, it probably take me another 5 years to get it. If I bring, if you take your kids to the US in 3 months, they won't understand the accents anymore because they have a propensity and their brains are very powerful to retain and learn better than adults do.
Lest I forget,
Yes.
if you are the president, how will you deal with the issue of perennial Asuu strike and deal with it once and for all?
It's investment. It's you need to invest. See, I was in the University of Lagos in 1992 or thereabout when Asuu first proposed the idea of funding. And what were they asking for at that time? They were asking for, I think it was 1.9 billion naira in 90s, early 90s. Jega was the Asuu president at that time. In fact, when they were holding a meeting at the University of Lagos, DSS surrounded the place. We mobilized students and drove them away so that they could get out of get out without getting arrested. So at that time, Nigerian government said that was Babangida said they don't have money to give to us. We don't. But it was also about that time that the Gulf War happened, and what we later learned was that over $12 billion was stolen from the the excess crude money that we got from the Gulf War, and they were just asking for 1.3 billion naira, not dollars. So if they had just dedicated $1 billion to from the Gulf War to that, it would have solved the problem for maybe the entire 90s. And now that 1.3 billion naira that they stubbornly refused to invest at that time has now become 1.3 trillion. I mean, 1.1
Yep.
trillion naira they're asking for now. And you are still saying, no, we don't have it. But here is the truth. We have over 150 billion naira for the Accountant General of the Federation, right? We have $1 million for Afghanistan as aid, right? We have money to buy SUVs for the government of Niger Republic, right? So we have several other investments made to help people, corporate welfare. The Dangote refinery, you heard about it, right? He was building it, then he got to a place Dangote could not continue building the refinery. The Nigerian government put aside $2.5 billion and invested in a refinery, private refinery. If you divide that into two and you give Asuu half, this strike is resolved for a very long time. Are you getting my point? Because $1 billion now is 800 billion naira. If you are looking at the market value of our so-called currency, naira, $1 billion. So if you add 500 million to it, ASU strike issue is resolved. 1.5 billion is what at 800. We've resolved ASU strike, and ASU says that this amount of investment will end all strikes for almost a decade. They just want it even broken into 200 billion each and given out to them in six tranches. They're not even asking for bulk. But the country that can afford to invest in a private refinery that is not owned by the country, it's owned by private individuals, just donate 2 point something billion dollars. You call it investment. The NNPC that is making this investment has not made any deposit into the federal accounts in the last 1 year. So I'm breaking this down to people who may not understand that this is deliberate. The policy, a deliberate policy to kill the educational sector, particularly tertiary institutions in the country. You know why? They don't send their kids to schools here. Even Buhari never sent any of his children to Nigerian universities that we know of, that I know of. They're always in, UK schools. He claims that some of them had been in school before he became president. But we know at least one that was in a UK school after he was president. The one that was flying a private jet to take photographs at one time. About these guys are just enemies of progress, as we like to call them.
All right. One of the things that in the last 1 week has been in the public domain and have been dominating discourse is redesigning of the naira.
Yes.
There have been all kinds of controversies for and against the redesigning of the naira. What's your take on?
I'm publicly opposed to it. It's useless, and I took it up immediately. So this is just a scam. And since they started the discussion about redesigning naira, the naira has lost about 200 naira or close to it in terms of value. So that shows to you that the response of the world to your proposal to redesign the naira doesn't make any sense. I think what we should be talking about is revaluing the naira, not redesigning the naira. As someone joked, if the naira looks finer, uh, you know, looks aesthetically better, would bread recognize it as stronger? So it's one of their scam policies.
Why do you think it's so?
Well, what is it going to do if the value of the naira is useless and you redesign it? The argument that kidnappers would not be able to transact in naira because the one they have will be useless. It's nothing. If a kidnapper knows that you are using naira, you are redesigning the naira. They also redesign their policies. Yeah. So what are you talking about? And the other argument was that there's excess money being hidden by politicians. We already know that politicians are closer to the CBN governor or CBN officials than the poor the people that will suffer at the end of it. People who are going to queue up with 5,000 naira trying to get the new naira. They will create a new layer of market for extortion of the poor people. And because I was around when they redesigned the naira in the 80s, they didn't do anything. Why do you repeat the same mistakes, the same policies that have never worked before? So is not something that will work. The politicians, the CBN officials, and everybody will get together and get their own first. The CBN will be driving the redesigned naira to homes of politicians and taking out the old ones. They may not even take the old ones; they just go and burn them. So I have not seen any sense behind it. No.
All right, let's pause here and allow our brothers and sisters who are online to share their thoughts. Maybe they have a question, comment, observation to make based on his remarks. Let me start with James joining us from the Gambia. James, let's hear you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm very impressed, I must say, by the gentleman's analysis because I believe uh, 10 times any amount of money saved on education this year will be spent on expanding the jail houses in 10 years' time. Any amount of money we save on education this year, 10 times that amount will be spent on expanding the jail houses. So since he is interested in education, that is something that's very encouraging. Frankly speaking, I find it very difficult asking um, people of his type questions because they know precisely what the problems are. So no matter the questions I ask, he has solutions to this problem. But however, I will try to find out certain things from him. Um, the issue of judiciary, corruption in the judicial system. On this platform, many times in the past, I have cause to refer to what happened in Ghana during the Jerry Rawlings administration, when some judges were abducted and murdered extrajudicially. The way they were conducting their activities left so much to be desired. So certain elements of government went behind the scene to do what they are not expected to do, to sanitize the system in order for policies to be implemented. Anyway, that's now history. In the case of Nigeria, it is no news that the judges are misbehaving. The judiciary is no longer the last hope of the common man. Should you become president of the republic, how do you hope, or what strategies will you use to sanitize the judicial system? Because that is the bane of our problem. That's the root cause of our problems. If an accountant general steals money and is allowed to go scot-free on plea bargain, it's because of the rot, monumental rot in the judicial system. Men who are supposed to be learned, so-called gentlemen, are becoming nuisance in the society. So this is one of the causes of our problems. Then secondly, your manifestos. Please kindly do us a favor. We want a comprehensive breakdown. I happen to be a beneficiary of the free education program of Chief Obafemi Awolowo in Bender State while I was in Nigeria. But we asked Baba Tokbe and other people when they came to Benin, Michael Ajashin, Bisi Onobanjo, and others, they came to Benin. We sat them down and asked them questions. How many students do you hope to take care of in this free education program for Bender? Where will the money come from? How many teachers do you hope to train and hire? How many schools will you build? We want a comprehensive breakdown, not because we don't have confidence in you. We are afraid of something. All over Africa, politicians have told us horrendous lies, very sweet lies, very pleasant lies. At the end of the day, they disappoint us catastrophically. And these are the class of people Wole Soyinka some time ago referred to as the wasted generation. These guys are still very much around. Young, very young guys take over government. At the end of the day, they are unable to manage the affairs of the state because they have no clear-cut plan on what to do. And lastly, please, experiences have shown that when men of your age take over government, you come with very radical ideas. I'm not against radicalism in government because The situation we've got tonight is that there can never be a change in Nigeria without a revolution. I'm sure you will agree with me that not all revolutions bring about the desired changes. In Liberia, for example, when the American Liberians came in 1822, they formed a set of, kind of government that was very oppressive, apartheid government in Liberia. It was Samuel Doe that brought it to an end. Unfortunately, that man has been demonized. When he brought the government to an end, what followed was underground movement against him, especially by American Liberians in the United States, that plunged the country into a terrible civil war, which they are still recovering from. However, we live in a world where some people will surely die for others to live. That's how the world is. We want you to please bear in mind that should you become president, this wasted generation I'm talking about will not let you know peace. They are fully prepared to plunge the country into catastrophic war. I'm not telling you to expose or to explain how you ought to go about it, but just have it at the back of your mind that these guys are very much around you. So I will not ask you much questions because we have confidence in people of your type. This man, Prince Adebayo of the SDP, these are guys we have some confidence in. I sincerely wish you well in all your endeavors. It's a pity I passed through the University of Lagos before you got there. I graduated in 1981. I was in the Geography Department, Faculty of Arts. I hold an MA degree in Geography. I sincerely wish you well in your endeavors. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you, Mr. Victor.
All right. Thank you, James. NS, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Mr. Victor. Thank you so much, Sowore, for all your service to this country. Funny enough, Mr. James had some of my exact themes, but I'll try not to repeat his questions and just first, I would like to start with some feedback. I think as someone who's 35 and below, so I'm considered youth, although I don't think so. Um, I don't think that the youth are being hoodwinked to support Obi or anything like that. I think Mr. Shore has not done a good job of communicating his policy ideas to a diverse audience. And speaking as someone, I think I donated to his campaign, and I know I was flawed when one of the first initial engagements I saw of him, he had mentioned something about Southeasterners being IPOB. I know I was very disappointed by that kind of rhetoric. And I just suggest that I know it's political season and some of this thing is how you get attention, but I think people are paying attention to those things. Then my second question is, I've read your manifesto, and just for a revolutionary like yourself, I'm just surprised that the judiciary was not really mentioned because, like Mr. James said, I feel like that would be the crux of any kind of substantial reform. That's what will build the institutions. That's what will set a different kind of, pace for the future. So I'm just surprised. Obviously, I love all the human development parts of the manifesto, but I think you should update that with some judiciary reform as well. And finally, I'm confused. Sometimes it seems like you espouse socialist ideas. Sometimes you say it's mixed economy. So please, can you just clarify, like, what is your idea of economic development and the way forward? Because me as a person, I don't think socialism is practical, and I don't know any way that it's been practical. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, NS. Obi, let's hear from you.
Yeah, Mr. Sowore, good evening. Thank you for stopping by. I've been listening to you and some other SDP, the Prince, and the other candidate that came to this studio or this program. It appears that all of you are patriots of Nigerians, and it also appears that four of you listening to you guys appears that you all want Nigerians to be a new Nigerian. And But what I don't know is why you guys don't want to put your egos aside to align together and they break the cycle of the elite. Elite, what I mean by elite, the sole group people, APC, PDP, that has been holding Nigeria on the neck for the past years. I think what they've been doing to us is divide and conquer. Like you said, you and some other candidates are being disrespected by some conspirators or some medias by disrespecting you, by telling you are not qualified for people to hear your voice. I will feel offended too. It's wrong. So, but if you guys try and put aside your shoulders, get together, ally together, and support one particular party, since I'm not trying to be disrespected, or to disrespect you by saying, since according to the polls, P2B is leading, join Labour Party, that does not mean your party will die, or that does not mean that Sowore will no longer be there. You still got to have impact or role to play in Nigeria, since you want Nigeria to be good. We all want the same goal, other than the other part of the party that are using bullion van to be sharing money, when people don't know that money they are sharing to them will be collected back from them. That's number one. Number two is, if you become the president, what will you do and how will you work on the high custom duties, example, on goods and some cars that are coming into Nigerians? Now, the way it is in Nigeria now, Nigeria custom have contracted a collection of duty or duty something to a China contractor, which is China is now controlling most of our international movements, such as passport. The Chinese people are, from what I heard, I'm starting to be corrected, that our database on passport is in China or being controlled by China, something like that. So what are you going to do in order to bring the custom duty low, so that average person in Nigeria can afford a car now? The way it is, average person in Nigeria cannot afford any car now. So another question I have is, for the past 20 years or 15 years now, Victor, I don't know, maybe I'm starting to be corrected. The road leading from Maitu to Tinkan Port and Apapa Port has been bad for more than 20 years. How comes nobody wants to walk that road? And that is a road that generates revenue to the country. At least it's one of the major revenue, because that's where the major port in Nigeria is. But that road has been bad for more than 15, 20 years. To the extent, the other day I came back to Nigeria, I had to walk for like 6 kilometers in order to get to port from Maitu down to the port, because there is no vehicle. If it rains, it's hell down there. Another question I have for you is, what will you do if you become the president? What will you do to the corrupt judges and the police officers that is pulling or bringing Nigeria to their knees? What will you do to them? Are you going to reform the judges, the judiciary system, fire the ones that you think that they are corrupt, or set up a committee that will look into a corrupt judges? And this question, please, even if you dodged other questions, I would like you to answer this particular one. How much do you think is the best amount you will pay a police officer, a constable, or a starting salary for a police officer on your regime or your administration? How much? Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Obi.
I think we should do
let's
first.
Let's now allow him to respond to this. Then I will take the next set of people. All right.
Well, thank you very much for these questions. And I want to say, regarding the judiciary, he asked a judiciary question, the lady asked a judiciary question. So it means a lot of people are interested in judiciary reforms or transformation. I am not for reforms. Nigeria has passed the stage of reforms. Nigeria is now in need of revolutionary action in all these rotten areas. And my prelude to answering this question is that I have been a victim of judicial corruption. incompetence and collusion. Uh, Very recently, uh, I'm still involved in it. When I left Nigeria, when I contested in 2018, 2019, and I usually say 2018 because that's when I started the campaigns, the judiciary couldn't wait for me to leave the country before they took over the party that I set up to run in 2019. And the Court of Appeal, when we won there, was very clear that they ought not to have taken over. They took over the party for 3 years before we were able to get justice. And you all know that justice delayed is justice denied. And on a personal level, there's been despicable judicial attack on my own personal liberty, almost unheard of in recent history, that a judge decided in a courtroom to grant me bail on money that she knew I had no ability to provide. She asked me to go and deposit 100 million naira, as a condition for bail. I told them I'd rather rot in jail than pay money. I don't have the money. And she said openly in the courtroom that, this the Sowore that everybody is shouting doesn't have 100 million. You mean he doesn't have 100 million naira? And then, also as part of the condition, a judge restricted me to Abuja for 3 years. I just got that lifted in 2022. Since 2019 till about 3, 4 months ago, I was restricted to Abuja. I couldn't leave Abuja. That was a decision made by a judicial officer. And I'm sure that decision stemmed from some heavy compromise within the judiciary. Otherwise, this was not heard of. Last 2 times anybody was ever restricted to a city was in Auchi. There's a labor leader, Pai Modu, as we later, he's late now, who was restricted to Auchi by colonial masters, white people. And then in 1963, Shifo Bafemi Awolowo, who was restricted to Lekki, when they also charged him for treason. So this happened to me. So I have special interest in judicial reform. I have to, even if it's one of the first priorities I should engage in, it must be. And I know what is wrong with the judiciary. I know that the judiciary has a number of technical issues. But most importantly, corruption is a big problem in judiciary. So as we are fighting the larger corruption in a society, we must also fight alongside it the corruption in fact, the corruption in judiciary is one of the biggest corruption that we must fight first and foremost. Because the moment you clean up the judiciary, you will be able to take care of the other corruption issues that have led Nigeria to a point where corrupt individuals feel that they can bribe judges. Now they say in Nigeria, if you want to win a case, you get two sets of lawyers, one that knows the law and the one that knows the judge. This should never uh, be the case. So, without going to specific, uh, I will make sure that as a priority, the judiciary is sanitized in a transformational way, and it includes, and things as mundane as, if necessary, setting them up so that they can be caught. Because it's those judges that are collecting bribes, they do it almost openly. I know how they do it. I've been in courts before where lawyers are giving signs to judges. Before because I always sit around in court these days a lot because I have a lot of cases. At the last count, I have like 15 cases in Abuja. Criminal cases, I get sued for libel a lot. So, cyber stalking, there's nothing they don't sue me for. You don't talk about the judiciary without talking about the police as well. They all work hand in hand. And the worst part of the judiciary in the country are the ones that affect the poor people, the magistrate level. If you know a lot of people in prison who are thrown into jail for offenses they didn't commit because police prosecutors connive with magistrates, you'll be shocked. Another part is electoral tribunals. These are some of the most corrupt ways these judges operate. And the final biggest one are the corruption cases, where judges will throw away evidence. And ensure that people who are supposed to be punished for massive corruption that's drained the country of resources are not punished. So corruption is done. Manifesto breakdown, we have it, and we're going to update. But we have our website, the party website, and my website, showre2023.org, has a breakdown of our manifestos. But it's also going to get a facelift because a lot of things are happening on a regular basis, and we are updating. So you can find out. Our brother James talked about radical ideas. I am of the same opinion with you. Interestingly, I studied geography and planning. I think you noted it at the University of Lagos. But you studied geography when it was arts. I studied when it was science. So that's the only difference between the two of us. And that's a joke, by the way. So I have radical ideas, and I'm not apologetic about it. I also believe in the revolution to the point that when I was running in 2018, I met Jerry Rawlings, and asked him what went wrong with the Ghanaian model. And we spoke extensively a lot. I am not interested in shedding blood. I don't want to kill anybody. I don't even believe in death penalty. But he told me a lot of things. And because some of the reason why he did what he did in Ghana was because of Nigeria. He said to me, he woke up one day and said, Ghana must not become Nigeria. That's the first thing that popped up in his head because he was reading all the stories, and about how Nigeria had just become a basket case. So his first motivation wasn't even Ghana alone, the corruption in Ghana. It was Nigeria. And he said most of all the corruption in Ghana at that time, which was small compared to what is now evident and prevalent. He said those things are small compared to what's happening. Nigeria has influence in the corruption that was happening in Ghana. It's still happening to today. If you go to parts of Accra, some of the best houses are owned by corrupt Nigerian officials. There was a time in this country that before Dubai became their next destination, you can't get a flight to go to Ghana on a weekend. All of them just take money and just leave Nigeria to go have fun in Ghana. And it's still happening to today. So you can imagine how radical ideas have become part of my DNA. And I believe, like you too, that whether we like it or not, the revolution is going to happen in Nigeria. But the earlier we carry it out in a peaceful way, the better. Because some of us are even talking about transformation, restructuring, and reforms. Will be shocked that the next generation will be so radical. We will be scared to go near their own intervention in the system. Um, so the lady started her thing by saying that my communication with the it did not resonate with the youth. This is a lie. And she also said that I said IPOB, that I said something about IPOB that she probably wasn't referring to me, because if there's anybody that has been supportive of IPOB as a social movement from day one, I'm the one. And I've said this everywhere. I go to Nnamdi Kanu's trial, even at the expense of my life here in Abuja. The people have brought dagger out to kill me because I was attending his trial. I met him in New York and discussed how we could collaborate. I have never had any issues with IPOB. Maybe she takes the opinions written on Sahara Reporters as mine, which is the media platform that is separate from me. Nobody has suffered outside of IPOB members like me. But part of the reason why I was arrested and detained for 5 months was because I met Kano in New York. But the prescriptions I gave to Kano, he appreciates them to today. Even as recent as about 3 months ago or 2 months ago, I tried to visit him in the DSS detention. I stayed there for 4 hours, hoping they would let me see him. They pushed me. I mean, after a few hours, they told me they had closed. I had to leave empty-handed. So I don't want us to. We don't need to add any exaggeration. I don't want to call it a lie to people's character. I've never in my life said openly that IPOB is not. IPOB is something else other than what I know it to be, which is a social movement that is trying to address, injustices to the people of Biafra. In fact, there are police officers who have accused me of being a member of IPOB, and these are both DSS people. So why would I say that? So she also asks about the judiciary, which I think I've addressed, and she said that I espouse socialist ideas. Yes, but my kind of socialism is the type that you can find in places like Norway. What they call it Nordic socialism, which is this investment in people. And I've mentioned it before. I lived in the US for 20 years. Nobody needs to tell me about capitalism. Their own sort of capitalism is also different from our own, because a lot of people in the US get welfare. They have education support. They have free education up to certain levels, and they don't take it for granted. The moment you are born in the US, you are given support, the kind we don't have here. So they don't also practice capitalism of blindness, and they have regulations in place. People will tell you in Nigeria that government has no business
Being in
in
business.
business, but the biggest business in any part of the world is government. That is the reason why we're investing billions of naira to organize an election for one day, because you know if there was no if government have no business in business, we would have just given up our countries to business people to manage. I had that interview a few days ago, and the reporter was saying, "Oh, you want to become CEO of Nigeria?" No, no. Nigeria is not a company, because to become the CEO of a company, you can be made the CEO of a company by the highest shareholder. There's no shareholder in Nigeria, except they are saying that Nigeria has become a private company of a few, which could be true if you look deeper into the Nigerian state. Is owned by a few. But at least we are pretending here that we want elections and we want people to decide who their leaders should be. Don't call it a company, it's not a company. So my kind of socialist ideals or ideas are the ones that have evolved over time. I am not practicing the socialism that have not been dynamic. And we've seen how Denmark pay people money to stay in higher institutions, $1,000. I was watching something about 3 days ago about the UAE, how they invest in their citizens to the point that if you want to get married, they'll pay you for it. They'll come and erect a tent. Are you getting me? Or you choose wherever you want to do the wedding. They'll pay for it. That's the UAE of the Dubai Emirates. If someone dies, they come and erect a tent and ensure that they carry out the burial in a decent way. So if you go to Saudi Arabia, they have social welfare programs. So why are we saying that socialism doesn't work? Lula, who has just won the election in Brazil now again, ran a socialist system in Brazil, and it was recorded in history that that was the best period of growth, economic growth, and the highest period of reduction of inequality in Brazil. That's why he won an election again. He's going to be going for president of Brazil for the third term by January. And he carried out all these socialist reforms in the country. But again, they have evolved because they also got involved in business. China is socialism that's also dynamically evolved. China, as of today, is producing mid-range jets. Some of the best mid-range jets in the world are produced by Brazilians, Embra. So we started this whole race for development, right? The same time, Brazil is practically a developed country. I've been in Brazil in 2002, and I was in Brazil as recently as in 2016 or so for a TED talk. You understand? And you can't believe that we started the same time. Malaysia, we started the same time. Thailand, we started the same time. Singapore, we started the same time. So we had not evolved as a developing. We have not. We are not. We have even called third world country, and they have not even shifted us from third world. They call us another name. Global South. It's like they can't figure out where we are. So, and these are very important things to look at. And I want to also quickly address one issue. This whole idea about youth, people just, I don't want to say careless, but I hear it frequently. Oh, youths are supporting a candidate. It's nothing like that. This is Nigeria. Maybe those of us who are outside, we get carried away by internet very quickly. There's no youth that is supporting any candidate here. Everybody can create the impression that they are being supported, right? You can go and pay influencers, comedians, and do what they have to do. When we started NSAS, I was one who started NSAS in Abuja. But when they want to write NSAS history now, they plug in names of people who, some of them didn't even spend 30 minutes at any NSAS event. But they take a few pictures, videos, and you are the originator of NSAS. I was the one who started NSAS. It's on Twitter. I was the first person to call for NSAS protests across Nigeria. So I was the one who made personal calls to most of the influencers. I have all their numbers. I was calling them. The ones that won't respond, I engage them on Twitter. But today, if they want to write a sad story, I say, no, it is so person that started. I'm not competing for that. They even attack me publicly that I want to hijack ISAS and turn it into a revolution. I explained to them, what are you doing? You are engaging in a revolution. And they found out when the government came to Lekki toll gate, they suddenly found out that, oh my God, we were doing a revolution that we didn't know. Because how do you know that you are doing a revolution when the old order comes after you with unbelievable brutality? And efficient brutality was what they carried out. Precise brutality to quash the way they came to and Lekki toll gate was to quash a revolution. They didn't come there with tear gas. They came here with live bullets. As the investigation was done, there were bullets specially imported for terrorists. So you are already a terrorist by engaging in SARS. You are revolutionary. But before people realize, it was too late. But that's a conversation for another day. Another brother was saying that we should put aside our ego to drive out PDP, APC. My simple response, because you mentioned the Labour Party, I should go and join the Labour Party. My simple response to you is what Okowa said on Sunday. He looked at APC. No, he looked at Kwakwanso. He said, "What are you talking about? Are you not part of us? You were part of PDP." Kwakwanso has not been able to answer that. But look at Peter Obi said, up until May, you are part of us. Peter Obi was the deputy to Atiku in 2019. I ran the election. They were distributing money to voters. They paid people who elected Atiku in their primaries. Peter Obi was there. Peter Obi himself gave money. I've said this openly, that were used to bribe delegates. So where did Peter Obi fall from the sky? The fact that his supporters know how to harass people doesn't stop the duties of truth in this conversation. I cannot join a person that came from PDP or APC disguised as Labour Party. No, it's not possible. I've said this many times. It's not ego, it's conscience. Peter Obi himself, I have met him in public events and confronted him with his records. He has not denied them. I have asked him, show us the school you built when you were governor for 8 years that you can send your own children to. He hasn't responded. The response is, shut up, And you start wondering what's different between Peter Obi supporters and Buhari supporters, by the way. But I'm not new to all these hecklers on social media. You see, show us your records. It's the same thing we challenge Tinubu with now. What are your records? 2 hours of rain in Lagos. Lagos is underwater. And you are saying you are a city boy. You are a ghetto boy or ghetto man. So when you challenge people like that, they say, it's not ego. Someone who has fought for democracy for 3 decades, you say he doesn't know how to communicate with youth. All the youths are not supporting any candidate, except maybe you don't know Nigeria. I just came from Kano, right? Kano has huge voting population. I am not exaggerating. We didn't find a person in Kano who was supporting Peter Obi. Amongst the youth. None. You can ask them. So, except you're saying that all the youths are based in the South or they are based on the internet. But even on the internet, different candidates have different youth blocks. So, this blanket attempt to silence people by saying, oh, all the youths took a decision. It's not right. I think that is also as disrespectful as the government treats some of us. It feels like, there's this tyranny of choice. If I make a choice, I must impose it on you. No, if you are tyrannical in that sense, you are not different from Buhari. So that's to answer the issue of ego. People who are part of, I have said it openly. Anybody endorsed by Obasanjo, Buhari, and all these guys who run, you can't see me in that group. But that's not the only reason. My reason is that I actually have a history with Peter, which I've spoken about, that I have had opportunities to save him several times. And I said it that even during this election cycle, when they wouldn't, some people were plotting to remove him as Labour Party candidate, I gave documents that helped him to get over that particular legal incumbrance to his lawyers, Femi Falana. And they won the case, and that's how Peter became a candidate in this election cycle. I said this when I said it was an uproar. Oh, they were saying on Twitter that he will reply. Till today they haven't replied. I said it in front of Falana, and he confirms it. And Donyo Kupe was there in Lagos. That was on Ganifa Owemi's 89th birthday that we celebrated, posthumous birthday. No one of them could dispute my position because it is on record. It's something I did. Until today, they have not denied it. They are very vibrant. They have very good social media units. They have PR units. They can't deny it because it is something that happened. The documents are there, have paper trail. So why would I have an ego when Peter Obi ran into a problem? I assisted him to get out of a legal quagmire that would have ruined his candidature. So these are just to clarify those who make this allegation about ego and that they must force you to join Labour Party. Labour Party has been around for probably longer than it's as long as so many of the parties that are running now. It's one of the oldest parties. In 2019, the Labour Party endorsed Buhari. In 2019, a party that I created in 2018 had more votes than the Labour Party. I had more votes as a presidential candidate, although those are allocated votes that have no credibility. But in general, I had more votes. Labour Party in 2019 election had 5,000 votes, their presidential candidate. I had 33,000 votes allocated to me. They allocated 5,000 to them. So what is the ego there? So let's just put aside. I think the people who are actually egocentric, and I'm not insulting anybody, are those who have this tyranny of I must force you to go and join a party because that's where I was told everything is happening now. It's not true. Custom duties, very important. The reason why custom duties are generally imposed, which they taught us when we were doing commerce in secondary school, is to promote local manufacturing, is to ensure that you protect your own business manufacturing experience or experiment. Nigeria doesn't manufacture anything now except kilishi, So what are we? Except you get yourself back to that place where you are producing. And it has been known that in this modern world, it's either you produce or perish. You have to. I will, of course, first, the best way to reduce uh, custom duties is to start the manufacturing process, production process in the country. There are a lot of things we are even importing that we should not be importing. Nigeria imports toothpicks. Do you mean we can't? Those of us who are, ancestors were using broomsticks to pick their teeth. We are now importing from other parts of it. It's a shame. But I will definitely reduce custom duties on essential commodities that can help make life easier. But nothing stops Nigeria at this point in our history from producing cars, so that we don't have to be using used cars. Uh, it's a shame that we haven't been able to produce anything. And the solution is to produce so that we can compete in the international market and as a result reduce duties. We should be the ones getting duties for exports. that we are making. We should be in the export business, if not for the rest of the world, but the continent of Africa. But like I said, the only thing we are exporting now is kilishi, probably religion. Um, and I don't know if it's not a controversial thing to say, but that's the way I look at it. The brother was also talking about how the Chinese are in charge of our data. Then it's not only the Chinese. The passports we are getting in the diaspora, the database is with Malaysia. It's not even with Malaysia as a country, it's with a private contractor. So it's a shame that Nigeria that has been around for 62 years, it will be 62 this year, uh, has not been able to store his own data or can't even produce booklets of passports. Nigeria that used to produce all kinds of things in the past. We used to produce for the entire West Africa. We used to provide electricity to a lot of West African countries. We still do. In some West African countries to today, but we have failed in every aspect of life. We are the giant of failure, not the giant of Africa, and we are intending, or we will change that narrative. Uh, so our brother was also talking about the Tinkan Road, Apapa. You're talking about Tinkan. Is there any road in Nigeria that's functioning? The solution to port congestion is to open up ports in other parts of the country. And I know some of these refusal to let things function also have political connotations, ethnic connotations, and all kinds of base istic connotations. Some regions look at Buhari. Buhari locked up the border at the time. I was in DSS detention at that time. Why he locked up the border in the south? He kept the border open in the north, and he gave waivers to businessmen of certain parts of the country to walk through the border without any encumbrance, whereas the rest of the country, whereas they were entering stores in Lagos, especially of people of the southeast, looking for what they call contraband. Those things have bigoted intentions, and we are not afraid to say this publicly and openly. So it's fixing all the roads, not just thinking. There are a lot of opportunities for dry ports in the country. We should build them and make sure the country is not tied to, a narrow gauge of opportunity. So, and there was yeah, the rest is just okay. The last person we say don't let me forget this one is the salary of the police. Yeah, you see, I was the first to propose a minimum wage that's not less than 100,000. And what drove my decision in 2019 for proposing minimum wage of 100,000 was because of the police and teachers. Because I have said it and I'll repeat it here. Anybody that has an AK-47 will have access to weapons that has been paid slave wage is a potential armed robber. So as long as they are paying police 56,000, by the time they deduct all the deductions and the allowances, probably some of them don't even take home 25,000 naira. And yet you give them loaded guns, and you are wondering why at the slightest provocation they kill people over 50 naira. Yes, there's need for discipline, training, and retraining of the police, but we must address the issue of remuneration. So my proposal will not longer be fixed. It will be dependent on the value of the naira because this is a function of parity. A lot of Nigerians don't consume made in Nigerian goods. They have no power to control prices because they don't supply a lot of things. So, and the standard of living is based on so many of these products that we don't produce. So you cannot be paying somebody 100,000 naira, which is today about 80,000, $80 a month, and expect them to survive and be a police officer, teacher, and others. So what I will propose, and I'm proposing, is a living wage. And the living wage for a police officer could be as high as 250,000 naira. That's just my general guess. So it's not even for me 100,000 naira. We've passed that stage of 100,000 naira minimum wage. And when I was saying it in 2018, people that I call Facebook economists were heckling me and saying that it's going to cause inflation. And I asked them, How come all the corruption in the public sector don't cause inflation? One person will walk away with 200 billion. That's because let's even look at payments for salaries of emoluments of our lawmakers. 14 million naira is the average per month. 14 million naira. 30,000 naira is the average for minimum wage. You divide 30,000 by 14 million. So for you to get to 14 million naira as a minimum wage earner, you have to work for 38 years. And the lawmaker is earning 14 million naira. If you want to empty the Senate and the National Assembly, pay everybody minimum wage and see who will resume to work. So we are deceiving ourselves because you live in a country where people earn maximum wage and they are fighting against people who are earning minimum wage. It's the worst kind of inhumanity you can do to anybody. I don't want anybody telling me it's going to cause inflation. You are paying 30K now, there's inflation. You understand? So are people not going to survive? How do you go to work on 30,000 naira on a monthly basis? Let's assume that your transportation is 500 naira. If you work for 30 days, well, you don't work, you deduct weekends. You have already spent close to 20,000 naira on transportation alone. Food, let's assume that your food is 500 naira. Between food and transportation alone, your minimum wage is gone. Are you not going to buy medicine? Are you not going to send your children to school? Are you not going to pay rent? Are you not going to have some kind of form of clothing or entertainment like every worker is entitled to? So what are we? So we are not. The debate should be, living wage and not the minimum wage, because minimum wage cannot be determined in Nigeria, honestly, because of the fluctuation of our currencies. So that's my answer to the first three. The first three speakers.
All right. Thank you very much. Engineer Femi, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I agree to you, Mr. Sowore, and I agree to Victor, especially. One of the questions is, Mr. Sowore, your fire seems to have reduced since. I don't know if it's because of the hackling and issues with the government that has really reduced it. Because at the point you were really galvanizing and reigniting some hope in the youth then, but of late it's been down and all that. And do you think this idea of coming for contesting as presidency is one that can help you sell your dream and impact the country positively? Because that's another thing again. And have you thought of meeting the SDP, LP, and every other smaller parties, in quotes, and then see if you guys can really gather together and gather your votes and really send packing this idea of PDP or APC, really, because they have shown massive level of failures. And when they talk about the experience, I'm sure you spent some time in Lagos. We didn't grow up in Lagos. I was born and brought up in Lagos. I don't have one idea of anything Tinubu did that is different from any other person. As a matter of fact, Jack Conde, I always make reference to him. His free education sent me and a lot of people to school throughout. He gave you writing materials and stuff, something that works. Low-cost housing for the lowest earner in Lagos. They own an apartment block, maybe like 3-bedroom or so. Many of them have become old, but then notice that they have nothing to do, but they own apartments, so they put it out on rent. They have in Dolphin Estate, they have in Jakonde, they have in Isolo, spread all over the state. And the man is not laying claims to owning Lagos. I don't know what this guy did. That's all the noise about blueprint and all of that silly thing. Till yesterday, Lagos was still flooded, Aja and all that area. So for me, how is it that you guys can live with yourself, seeing that these old cargoes that their experience count for nothing, called development, are still the one rearing their heads? I don't understand that. And for me, the hopelessness in Nigeria is not because there are no alternative. Is how does this alternative really come through in the midst of these monsters that are ready to feed people's poverty to their advantage at every point in time? And they have some people that have sold out their souls, like Esau, for a piece of bread. And they are ready to come. If you protest, they are ready to come there. They are ready army for them to fight you, hack you down with dangerous weapons, and the government will not say anything. And the judiciary, can you ensure that the payment and salaries and all that of judiciary across board is independent of the president or anybody in the executive? And the appointment too is independent of them. Can you ensure that they establish as an independent body on their own, like the NBA decides who does this and that? And then the Minister of Justice position, this current guy has really made it a ridicule. Can you also ensure that that can be separated from the Minister of Justice so we can have a sense of balance? It's not when someone carries personal grudges and take it up and begin to exhibit it in executive positions, and we just wonder, and then there's nothing we can do. And what is the hope that the election will come through and they will find someone in the mold of Mandela, this guy Rwanda? I mean, it takes one person with some level of vision and sense to come in there and sweep this place clean. Can you do it? And if you can't, can you join with one or two other people and ensure this is done? I'm saying this as a roundup because the future of the generations of unborn right now would count on the decisions and actions that happen right now. And that is why we are in a dire strait. These are just a few things off my head. And I praise you for your sacrifices. God bless your family. You have a dual citizen, which I know. And then your sacrifice for this nation.
No. I don't want people to be saying they know what they don't know. I don't have dual citizenship.
Okay, that's the talk we had.
All right. Paul Iwunze, let's hear from you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Victor. Thank you, Mr. Sowore, for coming. You're a good man. I like you. First, I will talk on judiciary, Mr. Sowore. I have your explanation on the judiciary about them being corrupt. That is part of it. But if I may add, as a way of suggestion or my own observation when it comes to judiciary, you see, the judicial system, they are arm of a government that's supposed to be independent, but they are not independent. The government controls the judiciary. The government doesn't obey the rule of law. When the court gave order, the government will not obey it. If the judiciary goes contrary to what the government wants them to do, they are in trouble. So the judiciary, they are handicapped. They are handicapped. They are scared because the government, they are on their neck. They don't have a free hand. So, aside of them being corrupt, that is in my opinion, that is the main problem. So, should you become a president, that is not going to be a question. It's going to be like a suggestion. Make sure that the judiciary, they have the free hand that they're supposed to have so that they can do their job effectively and be professional. Because, in my opinion, they are professional. They know what to do. But the government doesn't allow them to do it. And that is not only the judiciary. Some other departments that are supposed to be independent, especially the INEC, they are not independent. That is why we are having bad leaders, because they are the ones that produce the president. The government influences them. They give us the wrong candidate. They rig the election in their favor. Another one is the press. We don't have free press. Press are being controlled by the government. Another one is maybe I throw in the police there. So those are the areas that needs to be sanitized and bring in patriotic Nigerians in those areas, especially the INEC. Because if the INEC chairman would be patriotic enough, he won't be compromised. And the Nigerians won't be having the bad president. So should you be the president, make sure that those departments that they are free, they are independent from the government. But the question I will have for you, Mr. Sowore, is if elected, what is the number one thing, the first thing, something that you will consider the priority of Nigerians, the one you will solve first? Second, how are you going to run inclusive government, whereby all regions feel a sense of belonging? And lastly, Mr. Sowore, are you going to revisit and investigate the Itogate massacre? And should you investigate it and find some people guilty, are you going to probe them? And lastly, sorry, do you think you can sign into law do you think you can sign into law too old to run? Because Buhari signed into law not too young to run. So do you think you can sign into law too old to run? Thank you so much.
All right, Samuel Nnamdi joining us from the US. Let's hear you, Samuel.
Hello, Mr. Victor. Can you hear me, please?
Loud and clear.
Okay, Mr. Victor, let me start by saying good afternoon. It's my 1:33 p.m. here, Dallas, Texas. And I want to say again to you, a very big God bless you, Mr. Victor, for bringing Sowore to this program. Having said that, let me come to Sowore and also really use this opportunity that I have to talk to him one-on-one where he can hear me, to say to him, thank you for being the kind of man that you are. This greatness resides in Africa, but we keep insulting ourselves. I said it even in program yesterday, that I realized that the insult seems not to be coming anymore from the political class, but from the citizens. How can we be 230 or more million people with professors of law, intelligent people, PhD holders, doctor degree holders, in different fields, and then our judiciary, like everybody have been talking about, is the way it is? People should not accuse Sowore, because I think I have tried to follow him. He sincerely and honestly attends Nnamdi Kanu cases. He met him, I think, over here in America or Canada for real. He has personally also suffered for his affiliation with IPOB. These things are not words of mouth. These things can be fact-checked. You can look into it and they are true. So he actually is my number one preference. I have said it to so many people, which is why I started by appreciating Mr. Victor, because now I have opportunity to say it to him. He is my number one preference. The only thing I want to beg him, I don't have questions to ask him. I wish I could connect to him personally, because my goodness, we can't have people like this and be behaving like an idiot country. We should use our bright brains. Sowore will revolutionize this country 100%. Just 3 days ago, I was speaking to somebody about Sowore. I said that this man is the only one with the willpower to stop nonsense. He has the will. Like nonsense will come to an end by force, by fire. No negotiation. Others might be doing democracy, diplomacy, beating around. No, we don't need beating around the bush. Nigeria has gotten so rotten that we don't have to beat around the bush. No, sir, we don't need beating around the bush. We need to attack it headlong. The only concern I have that is troubling to me, and the only plea, because I heard you in an interview where you said, I think the interviewer asked you, would you take up a position if anybody happens to win? And you said no, because of course everybody running is running to win. And I'm rooting for you, man, 100%. But I want to beg you to help in fixing Nigeria, please. If it is not you, because somehow I am looking at a situation where there could be a balance. For long, like you know, and have also fought for, the people from my side, the Southeasterners, have been messed up in this country. We have been killed massively during Biafra War. We have been marginalized for years. We have been kept at the back. So a Southeasterner being a president is not a bad idea. Mr. P2B might be part of the old bloc, but at least from the words of his mouth, especially that he has challenged us to hold him to account, if it will bring about the fact that this nation is inclusive, I think it will be proper. So somehow, reluctantly, I am saying for the sake of equity and balance and justice and fairness, okay, let P2B go. But in the depth of my soul, as I have said so many people, my goodness, and for sure, 100%, because we need this kind of person to fix this kind of rot that has happened in our nation. And that's just what I want to say. God bless you, and I'm really rooting for you, sir. Mr. Victor, back to you.
Thank you very much, Samuel. CM joins us from the UK. Okay, Ade, where are you joining us from?
Hey, hi, this is Ade. I'm calling you from Ohio in the United States.
Okay, Ade, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. And I just want to make observations as well as a only question that I have for Mr. President. My observations are the following. You see, many people, especially in Nigeria, have problems with really understanding President Sowore, simply because I guess maybe they don't really dig deeper to know much more about him, especially those that are born like about 15, 20 years ago that don't really know him, because Sowore has been in this for like over 30 years. And if you are not born, around that time, you're probably going to have it very difficult to know him unless you really dig and discover who this guy really is. So to me, that is to a disadvantage to them anyway, which of course is not really good, which I would suggest or tell them to really go deeper and go and discover who this guy is, And some people will come and say, oh, why can't he join the likes of Peter Obi and the likes? That is to their understanding, thinking Obi is the man that they think he could definitely move Nigeria forward, which whereas if they really dig deeper and they really understand Sowore's ideology, Sowore is all about fairness in everything. He doesn't care whether you are Obi or whatever you are. Bring your ideology, let's come out with facts and we hit it head on. That is who he is. But unless you really, educate them and tell them these are the facts from fiction, let us face reality. Nigeria is a deep problem that we are in over time. It didn't just start yesterday, today, and stuff. It's been there decades ago. And for us to really get out of this, we need collective effort in order to move the country forward. So at the end of the day, it's absolutely need a lot of education, especially to the younger ones that are not really in the fold of like over 30 years right now. So that's just my observation. And also another area, like part of observation too, is like, for example, and I heard one of the callers saying, oh, I know you have dual citizenship. Listen to that. This is untrue. But to him, that is what he knows. That is what he thinks it is the reality. And if he talks to like maybe a set of his friends, of his circles, he'll be saying all that. So those that do not even dig deeper will be saying the same thing about this very same person, which is not true. So those are part of the reason that, to me, I think majority of the youth are just going by what they think, maybe suits them or they think could probably be right in their own regards and be flying around with it. Those are just of my observations. My own question to President Sowore to me, is what are the AAC doing in order to get to the grassroots, in order to get to the Yalata in Tibadan, the Yachinedu for, Yanopaja and all that, those that are really not into this mobile or internet stuff. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Ade, appreciate. He will now respond, and I hope we listen very well.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I want to thank the brother that called from Texas, I think. His first, I think...
No, we started with Engineer Femi.
Okay.
then before Paul, Samuel, and
Yes.
CM. And then,
So some of the things I noted here are that someone talk about vision, and I would add that you can have all the vision you want in Nigeria. If you don't have the will, which the brother Dallas said, you'll be caught in the system. And I also extend that to address the issue of joining government. I've seen so many people who have told me in the last 3 decades that you can't change Nigeria from the outside, you have to go on the inside. I will found the inside to be a cemetery of human conscience. When I mean that's the way you're going to bury your conscience. And I have had opportunities in the last 30 years. In fact, I started having opportunity to become wealthy in my 20s when Babangida, who we used to call Donatus in those days, he would donate to anybody, was giving out cars. They were distributing cars to student union leaders, what they call 505. I don't think they exist anymore. And when I saw a 504 in Jos in this last week, I think it's a vintage car. So I never accepted. They were distributing money. Even when Abiola was in trouble or quandary, he was giving out money, and he was shocked that I rejected 800,000. And I've said this so many times already, and I'm just saying that we must use history as our compass in deciding or making decisions. I was around in 2019, sorry, 1999, left Nigeria in 1999. Few months before the election, I think it was about a month or so to the election that I left Nigeria. Obasanjo was also painted as the person who will bring justice to the Southwest because Abiola was killed in that election. As a matter of fact, the whole country ceded the presidential slot to the Southwest. Obasanjo and Olufalaye were the major candidates. Anybody with the benefit of hindsight today, which is 2020, will look back in 1999 and say they took the right decision. The whole country was up in arms. So it was Obasanjo. In fact, I remember that a pastor, Pastor Bakari, had predicted or prophesied that Obasanjo will die before the election. And they almost killed him. The Nigerian Southwest citizens and a lot of Nigerians say, why would you predict that or prophesy that Obasanjo is our savior? Would you say that after his 8 years in office, that a decision you took in 1999 was a sound decision? Everybody that helped to take that decision are regretting it today. Whereas 4 years later, there was a chance to elect Gani Fawemi, who would have at least turned some of the bad policies that Obasanjo had embarked on. Gani Fawemi was not listening to. He was a good communicator. You understand? But who voted for him? Nobody. Because Nigeria has a problem, and somebody mentioned it. The citizens have become accustomed to their abusers, and it's called Stockholm syndrome. When you fall in love with a person who constantly abuses you, that's where Nigeria is as of today. The leaders are terrible. They have weaponized poverty. The outcome of what you get as aggregation of opinion in Nigeria today, the leaders have been working towards it. That's why you see that in every election cycle, you always go back to the same people who decide who the winner is. The Babangidas, the Obasanjos, the Abdul Salams, emirs, some religious leaders. They have a clique. And anything outside of that clique is unacceptable to them because they know the consequences. They know the consequences of a Nigeria that develops. They know the consequences of a Nigeria where there's employment. They know the consequences of a Nigeria where there are free and fair elections. I have just done a few months of engagements. This one, not even debate. They are running head-to-scatter. I've only been to ICANN with some candidates. They are running head-to-scatter. They pay organizers of events. If Sowore is coming, don't invite me. If you invite me and I know Sowore is coming, I will not come. Just one event, because they know the consequences that of what will happen to them if Nigerians open their eyes. And the moment Nigerians open their eyes, that development they are looking for will come. The moment they have a chance to vote for credible leaders. I keep saying it. In a debate, Tinubu cannot defeat me. In a debate, in a free and fair election, Tinubu cannot defeat me. Even if I don't go to the grassroots and they just say, stand here, stand here, stand here, point to the person you want to vote for. People will still prefer me than they will Tinubu or Atiku or even Peter Obi. They know these things. So when you see them lying behind a candidate, be worried. There's nothing new about this. There's nothing to be sensational about, nothing to be emotional about. I'm not an emotional person. I'm not an ethnic person. I am not a nepotist. I don't care who you are. I just want this country to work. That's what's most important to Sowore. And my brother asked him, what would be the first solution that you want to pursue as president of Nigeria? Light. And when I talk about light, it's both philosophical and physical. The moment you bring light into Nigeria, electricity, right? You will see a different Nigeria. A lot of scales will fall off the eyes of our people. People will get back to our GDP will just be going like geometrically. Even economists will not be able to explain why we are developing so fast because we have a lot of catching up to do. And light will resolve electricity insecurity. It will resolve even some of our educational problems because something as little as kids being able to do homework today, they can't do it because there's no electricity. We grew up with free education. We used to do our homework, with those lanterns, and there's another one that we have in our village. Every village, most villages have it. By the time you finish your homework, the whole of your nose strip is dark. But do you know why we're doing it in those days? We're swearing inside, I will not allow my children to go through this. It wasn't a pleasant experience. That's the promise of life. Nobody wants to live in a stagnant condition. Nigeria has been stagnated by those who weaponize poverty, who weaponize ignorance. And some of the educated people you see, with due respect, are only literate. They are not educated because there's a difference between education and literacy, as I said earlier before. And those are the ones that you see who will be grandstanding on television. When I was in detention, DSS, I used to come and take food and I would watch the journalists hang out, which they used to do on TVC. It was the time that Buhari closed down the borders. You see people they call analysts who say, since Buhari closed the border, I have now realized and seen the value of the Nigerian rice. It's very sweet. You understand? Where's Nigerian rice today? You understand? Buhari himself admitted that it was a stupid decision to have closed down the border. Nobody, it didn't help Nigeria to grow rice because effectively everybody knows that Nigeria doesn't have borders. I used to pass through Benin Republic to enter Nigeria when I was really, really under surveillance by the government. There are places on one side, I don't want to reveal it because I might still be passing the place in the future with this kind of characters they plan to vote for. There's a place where the back is Benin, the front is Nigeria. You just walk through the place. There's a way you pass. You can enter Nigeria through any means. So what you have just done is to empower smugglers. The amount of rice still entering Nigeria has not reduced. It just empowers and enriches a set of smugglers. Some of them are official smugglers. Some of the richest people in Nigeria today are smugglers. What is waiving custom duties for rich people? It's legitimate. It's like legalizing smuggling now. Why do people smuggle in the first place? It's to avoid payment of duties. That's why people carry out smuggling, so that they can make profit. So if you are waiving duties for a Dangote or BUA and all those rich people, you have just officially legalized smuggling for special crop of people. And then you are going after the people that carry one bag of rice across the border. Custom they'll be doing buga for them. So these are fundamental issues our people should understand. They asked if I would investigate Lekki Tollgate. Oh yeah, Lekki Tollgate to my mind is like massacre, of the Jews that happened in Germany. It doesn't matter how long. If I don't investigate it, this is generational crime. It's like the death of Delegiwa. It will never go away until even bones of people carry it out. They will still exhume them to come and explain it. The death of Thomas Sankara took 30 years before that justice came. And the reason why this transitional justice has come is to say to people, there are certain crimes you cannot commit and get away with it. In America, where a lot of our brothers are calling from, they have what they call cold cases. There are cases that have lasted for 40 years. Keep the file in view. Keep finding out. Some of them are just recently been, resolved. There are cases of people who did killings during the civil rights agitation. People bombed churches. In their 80s, they send them to prison. Go and die. Because you thought you could get away with this. It's not going to happen. So I want to urge our brothers, especially those in diaspora, because we have to be. I lived in the diaspora too. We have to be careful about this tyranny of choice, And our people in diaspora sometimes always feel like they know better than people at home, and they talk down on them, they talk over them instead of respecting that. We should be having engagement. So this is a time that the mistake should not be repeated, because the countries where you live, the ground upon which we are standing today, if you are living in the US, was watered by the blood of people like me. And I can guarantee you, these guys have been after me since my university days. 30 solid years. A brother was saying it that when he was making observation. The people they call children of democracy, they don't know what I went through in the 90s. The people were born in 1999, year 2000. They are now 22 years old. They have left behind a world without history, a past without history. They don't know us. A guy insulted me one day on Facebook, and I looked at the name. I said, "This person, I think I know the mom from the University of Lagos." I asked him, I said, "Is this person are you the daughter of?" She said, "Yes, that's my mom." I said, "Go and ask your mom about me." Came back and apologized, and I think he uprooted his Facebook page after that. I never saw the page anymore. And she said, "I'm so sorry. My mom said you're a great guy at the University of Lagos. You saved them from, the court menace when they were in school. But you are not supposed to be taught my history through oral tradition. We should have asked history. If Nigeria taught history in schools, there are so many of the leaders we have now today that will be in the prison of history, in the dustbin of history. But they knew what they were doing where they banned history in universities. So, except people who have met me, who understand my philosophy, my ideology, my competence, my exposure, just like a friend of mine, one of our brothers said, "Oh, I know that Sowore has dual citizenship." I was saying it with authority. I'm not blaming him, but it should not be that you say with authority things you don't know. You can ask me, "Are you a dual citizen?" It's not a crime. But there's a lot of them like that who just say, outright lie. Just like our sister also said that I said that IPOB is a bad organization. And an IPOB that I've almost taken my support for IPOB almost took my life. I've been attacked 3 times in Abuja for attending Kanu's trial. The only time I had any criticism for IPOB, which I said openly, was when there was this tendency using their radio to demonize other tribes. Like they say, "We don't attend Redeemed Church." And I called Kano, people knew, and says, "You are demonizing oppressed people like you. Change that." And he stopped it. When he came out of prison, he even helped a lot of people get out of prison. He met in the DSS detention. And he agreed, and we met. Even when we met, I said it openly when he was saying that Buhari is Jibril. I told him, I say, if he's Buhari, what does it do for you? This whole idea that the president of Nigeria is from Sudan, it doesn't do anything for. Are you saying that if he's Buhari, he is a better person? Exactly. So between Jubrilo and the Buhari that we are fighting against, they are all the same. So I've had calls, just as people question me, we question ourselves, and he's an immensely brilliant guy. Most people don't also know this. And imagine Kanu too, for those who, the counter of it. Look at what he goes through, even in the hands of his own people. The people that he's fighting for him, a lot of them call him names. In fact, I'm sure there are some of the people who will kill him if they have a chance. And he's fighting for the liberation of a tribe that is trapped in Nigeria. I have never missed words that I'm a big supporter of the Biafran movement and the struggle, and that Nigeria should not, nobody should be trapped in a bad marriage called Nigeria. I've said it openly. Some people even say it in the north and said, the reason they don't like me is because I asked for Kanu to be released. You understand? Well, you don't have to like me if I believe in justice, but you are going to like me the day you are trapped in the same day, and you need a voice like mine and is available.
All right. I think we just need to pause here. You will agree with me that even if we spend the next 1 hour, there will be questions and there will be questions. But hopefully, before the elections, we should be able to get him back when the campaigns deepen and when the jungle, as we say in local parlance, when the jungle matures.
Yeah.
So we hope to get him back. So sincerely want to thank James, who has joined us from Gambia, NS from the US, Obioji from the US, Engineer Femi from the nation's capital here in Abuja, Paul Iwunze from the US, Samuel Nande from the US, CM from the UK, Ade also from the US. We sincerely thank all of you for joining us tonight on this special edition of having the AAC presidential candidate to share his thoughts on some national issues. And once again, want to sincerely thank you for coming on, Omoyele Sowore, who is the African Action Congress presidential candidate. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for bringing me, and I want to thank all of the people that joined your program, our program, and tonight, to have an exchange of powerful ideas. I thank our brother James from the Gambia. I have that unyielding affinity with anybody who studies geography. I studied geography and planning, and my intention when I was leaving the university was to be a big planner, and I still remain a big planner for a Nigeria that works for everybody. He's there in the Gambia, a small country, and they seem to be doing better than us.
Sure.
This should not be the case. We should be doing better, and all other African countries are doing better as well. That's the reason why we want to make sure that Nigeria gets it right, so that it can lift and rise and make Africa rise the way it should. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening from us here in Abuja. I'm your co-host now.
On behalf of the team, thank you very much for the team who make this thing possible on a daily basis. On behalf of everyone, I'm Victor Iwele saying, God. We'll see you tomorrow. God willing.